day, and it's a wonderful time to be alive. Today is the 22nd day of February. So if your calendar is like mine, it will read 22226. All right, so 22nd day, February, usually the shortest month of the year, and we're going to be finishing February in a few days' time, God willing. And by Saturday, February will be over. But today we're not here to talk about February. We're here to continue in what we have always been doing in the past series. And today's topic is interesting. And I want to encourage us to share today. We're going to have any time of sharing. Yesterday was something, be coming together, the power of community. Our brother Bode Adefulu, and whenever we share, one of the things that happen is that we get to know one another. At least the person sharing, I got to know about the role he had played in his community, especially the coronavirus period. Can you imagine building road and all the agbo that the wife was giving him and everything. I also thank everyone for sharing yesterday. Each time I listen, I try to just listen because I speak quite often. When we come together, I just try to learn, listen, and from everyone. So today, topic again, it's amazing how these topics were picked. I didn't pick this topic, but they are quite interesting. This review that we're doing. Today's title is My Story Matters. Your story, matters. Actually, we're going to be looking at storytelling as a weapon of testimony. Okay, storytelling as a weapon of testimony. You testify, you share what God has done, you share what God is doing. And yesterday, I for some reason, I just saw myself playing Nana Terepa, Bass's song over and over again. See what the Lord has done. I was just playing over and over again. And it's amazing when you think about it. So we look at the power of testimony this morning. I'm also going to see how faith, our faith is built when we share. Last night before I slept, was it last night or this morning or last night? I saw a content. Everything is content creation. These days, and I was quite encouraged. By it. So there was a message that went out during the week, last week, that your pros were going on evangelism. I mean, from coast to coast, wherever they are, that going out. I said, wow, I don't know how this is going to happen. And so yesterday morning, our adult kids were all dressed up and everything in there. And why are you guys going? Oh, we are going, your pro evangelism hotel. And by last night, I was seeing content that was, I think, on Instagram or somewhere. And why they were telling, somebody was recording, talking to somebody on the street, talking to somebody by the road, I knew they were at Costain, I think. They were at Costain, around area. So there's a power of testimony. In Romans, so when I say Romans, Revelation chapter 12, verse 11 says, they triumph. And that is a very interesting passage. And I think sometimes we don't look at the power. We probably look at the first part of this passage, but not the second part. I would say that they overcame or they triumphed over him, which is, the devil himself, by the blood of the Lamb. That one we really like that one. By the blood of the Lamb. But the second one is say, and by the word of their testimony. They did not love their life so much as to shrink back. So I'm going to be unpacking this. This passage, Revelation chapter 12, verse 11. I'm also going to be unpacking a very short verse, Psalm 66, verse 16. I will say, come and hear, all you fear the Lord. Let me tell you what he has done for me. So it's about telling. So what do you do with an untold story? In the past, in the past few weeks, we'll be learning about this act of becoming. And when we're looking at the act of becoming, we tend to look up to God because that is where the source is from. We need to connect to God. And so, God's greatness, God's majesty, and then we from there we now looked inward. That's our spiritual growth as we connect, how that connection with God how it affects our spiritual growth. So right now we're going to now look outward. Okay, so that's what it's called, the upward, the inward, or say upreach, inreach, outreach. So that's what out of becoming is. You have to tap, bring it in, then take it out. So we're looking at the outward look at every single thing. And that's the power of your voice. The power of your voice. Our voice carry a lot of power. During the week, on Friday, precisely, I was invited for the third time to come and moderate or come and be a panelist in a program that a friend of mine, who's a coach also in the UK, she calls it the speak like an executive. Speak like an executive. So we had participants, either from the UK, I believe. They had another participants from Kenya. And what they did was to come and they were given titles and they were come and speak. Then myself, my friend Abdul Razak, then another friend of mine in the UK, our job was to come and look at them, help them to learn how to speak like executive. So one of the things we taught them was the power of their voice. Everybody has a voice that has a story to retell. So, but there's a lie that Satan will want to tell all of us or whisper to your ear. Whenever you just hear that whisper, even in this room, it might be telling you, oh, your life is boring. What are you going to share? And when they say share what God is doing, we're like, what is God doing really? My life is boring. Or it might tell you that your story isn't as dramatic enough. When we're sharing great news and we hear somebody's great news, we're like, man, that one is no, let me just keep my own. And we tell them, oh, your news is not dramatic enough, or you don't have a testimony that is worth sharing. So those are some of the three lies that Satan might want to tell us. But I'm here today to help all of us this morning to how to dispel that lie. Let you know that's a lie from the pit of hell that people normally say. It's from the pit of hell. You have moved, if you have been moved from what we normally tell people when we say I've been redeemed and everything. If you have been moved from death to life, if you have been moved from darkness to light, then you have a miracle to share. You have a story that matters to anyone. So that is why we're looking at this theme of your story matters. So don't keep your story an untold story. It's always good to share. When you share your story, something great happens. Now, because our stories actually carry power. When I listen to people share, and especially when you share your life, and that's one of the things that that we tell people that speak. The best form of storytelling is when that storytelling is about you. Like last year, I was privileged to win competition at various levels, about 4 levels actually, also from the club level to the area level to the district level. And I know when people were asking me, oh, Mr. M, how do you get this your stories? Either it's the humorous speech I'm giving, or the international speech I'm giving, or even the incredible, what do you call it? There's a speech that will give like out of the world kind of speech. I said, every speech that I've given, every single speech, minus 0. Every single speech, they are all about me. They really, yeah. See, everything I say, either I'm talking about my family, my extended family, my schooling, how I grew up. But you're able to paint that picture, like it's almost like wow. But ordinarily, someone will say, well, how can you share about yourself? And it becomes wow. And that is the act of storytelling. The Bible said that they triumph over Satan by the blood of the Lamb and by the word of their testimony. Now, if you notice what it says there, the weapons were, stated there. There are two weapons that are there. The first weapon is the blood of the Lamb. Of course, that's our salvation. I mean, you don't take credit for that one. That's your salvation. But the second line now adds a second weapon. And that weapon is the word of your testimony, the words of their testimony. So that means that your story is not just biography. When you tell your story, you're not just saying like once upon a time. It's not just a biography. It's actually a weapon of spiritual warfare. Our story, yes, that's right. When you tell your story to someone, you tell your story to your children, you tell your story, you rehearse your story, you rehash your story. It's actually a weapon. It's a big weapon. So whenever you open your mouth to declare what God has done, and I pray that this morning many of us will be convinced by the need for you to open your mouth and share what God has done, whatever it is. So whenever you declare what God has done, you are just You're not just, what's that word that became popular in the early 90s? Reminiscing. Yeah. You're not just reminiscing, you're just thinking back. You are actually pushing back darkness. When you reminisce, when you remember, I spoke about that some few days ago. That when you go back, you're going back should just be to go and camp at the past. Is you use it as a catapult. You pull it so that when you launch out, it becomes very, very intense. I mean, we saw some things in day 222 of our power series where we study the demon, possessed man. In Mark 5, remember the demon possessed man in Mark 5. So what happened after Jesus healed him? This man wanted to stay with Jesus, just to stay. This is the healer. I'm going to be with the healer. Let me just stay with the healer. But just Christ gave him a different command. He said, "Go home. Just go home to your own people and tell how much the Lord has done for you." All right. Don't just keep the miracle or build the miracle. You have to go and tell what the Lord has done for you. So his testimony was the key, really, to actually unlocking faith in this community. Think about the testimony of the Samaritan woman. It was the key in unlocking. There's something that happens when the testimony comes from someone you know. I can tell you stories that happened in 2,000 years ago, in the Russian Revolution, whatever. Stories are good and they're great, but there's something about telling a story about yourself. In preaching, we normally tell young preachers, whenever they come up, you need to have like an introduction. There's all kinds of introduction, all right? And the introduction is to captivate your audience, to get the focus of your elders. There are different stories you can tell. You can say, let me tell you something I heard. Somebody said, okay, that's a story. All right, people say, okay, what else we want to say? But when you say, guys, I want to tell you what happened to me yesterday, people are like, okay, what happened to you? So because that's a personal one. So Jesus Christ said, go home to your own people and tell how much the Lord has done. So his testimony was that key in unlocking when you share your story. So your story carries, my story, all our story carries this, the power to break chains in someone else's life, because it pivots that God is alive and active in every single thing. When you hear stories of people overcoming great, well, like, wow, if you can do it, then I can do it also. Because testimonies build faith ultimately. Testimonies build faith. And that's why in Psalm 66 verse 16, he said, "Come and hear, all you who fear the Lord. Let me tell you what he has done for me." All right. So what does the Bible command us to tell? Okay, to tell. If you look at some Psalms, say, tell the next generation. Tell them what God has done. Tell them. And every now and then we'll get together as a family, my own family here. I always like to tell them the story of how their mom and I met, or where we lived before they were born, even when they were too little to understand. I tell them those stories so that they're able to know, so that they're able to build their own faith. So because as we learned also, I believe in that's in day 22, the 22 is about spiritual discipline, the spiritual discipline of telling. Okay, it's right there. Spiritual discipline of telling. So we learn here that to tell is to rehearse. And when you rehearse, you actually you are being transformed. When you do something, that's actually how you form habits. When you tell things, and again, it helps you in your mind. So when you share your story, 2 things or more will happen. Maybe 3 might happen. Number one, when you tell a story, it satisfies your own faith. You remind yourself of what God has done. You remind yourself of God's faithfulness. You can't just doubt. When you are talking about what God has done in your life. And that happened, I think 2 days ago. My friend and I were just talking in the morning, or maybe in that, I can't remember when. And I just shared what I said, wow, it's going to be 11 months. March is 11 months already. March is going to make it, 12 months since we disengaged, from a job that we've been doing, like for me, 31 years. And I said, just like that, like 1 year is almost gone. But see what the Lord has done. Just look at it. And as I was sharing, you could see her light began to light. We're like, wow, that's true. Because we are in this story, we don't always realize what is happening. But when you step back of your pride, you're like, see what God, in 11 months alone, see what God has done. Amazing stuff. So I want you to tell, it ignites faith in other people. So as I was telling, because I was already ignited, as I was telling, I was able to share that fire, that spark with her. So faith, Bible says, comes by hearing. So when somebody else say, well, like, wow, that is true. And thirdly, I believe that when we share, when somebody hears of how God has provided for you, either in financial crisis, that person begins to gain courage to begin to trust God for their own, situation they may have. So when a sister hears about how God has healed a marriage, somebody's marriage, then she begin to strengthen. Well, whoa, I need to fight for my own. That means that if your marriage can turn around, then mine can turn around. Also, I'm very, very amazed at when I hear stories about disciples that God helped them to overcome addiction. I remember in Brother sharing how he was trying to, excuse me, how he was trying to break addiction from the 70s. I mean, he was not a Christian then. From the 70s, he tried. It was not possible. He went to school abroad, and he made it worse. He came back. It was worse. He got married, and in fact, that was one of the conditions that his wife gave him. He said, when we have a child, you must stop this smoking. And his brother was sharing how he tried to quit. It was like, it's difficult to quit. I remember he said one night that he said he's not going to do it again. They squashed, because their son came, their first child came. Then he squashed the cigarette and he gave it to his guard. The guard to go through it in the refuse can. And in the middle of the night, this man in the middle of the night, he said he got up in the middle of the night. He went down and said, start opening the trash until he found that cigarette and began to smoke. But the miracle happened when he was studying the Bible. People studied that didn't know he smoked. Of course, they were studying that with him at church and after the service and everything. But the evangelist of the church now told him, I said, hey, where do you normally hang out after work? He said, well, I hang out in a club. Oh, let's go to the club together. And while we were there in the club, this brother he was in the club. That's what they do in the club. He just put his hand it was not a brother there, put his hand in the jacket, brought out a pack of cigarettes and just lit the cigarette. And the brother, the lead evangelist of the church, asked him, you smoke? And the guy was like, yeah, sure. What are you? Don't you smoke? And he was like, no. And the guy said, and the evangelist said, well, I don't know any disciple that actually smokes. Now, what if I told you that was the last time this brother smoked? And he was sharing with all, like, for something just came over him, something couldn't stop for decades. That was the last time that he touched it. For right now, when the smell of smoke, it gets irritated. And today he is one of your elders. Isn't that amazing? So why would that should encourage anyone that wants to quit any kind of habit. So Bible says we are the salt of the earth. We are the light of the world. Day 12. That in the day 12. That means that light is meant to be seen. Say our testimony is meant to be seen. And somebody once said that a hidden testimony is a lamp under a bowl. Okay, your hidden testimony is a lamp under a bowl. It does not help anyone. There's no point. I mean, right now I have a ring light up there. If I tilt my glass, you probably see it. Well, I actually have another one, facing me here. And I mean, so I can't put these ring lights that's supposed to expose me. I can't put them under the table where I am, right now. God uses our journey to bless everyone. Now it's your journey. When you are going through it, it is your journey. But after it becomes your journey, God wants to also become to share that journey, to call other people's journey. Your pain was not for nothing. In counseling, we normally say, do not throw away your pain. Don't waste your pain. Don't waste your pain. If you waste your pain, then you've not learned anything, from it. I was teaching the School of Mission. Right now, we're looking at biblical leadership and church building. And tomorrow I'm going to be continuing in the classes tomorrow. And I remember one of the students asked the question. We're talking about fairness leadership, fairness, and every single thing. Like, why are you like this? And I told my story. I said, I grew up where I was bullied practically every day. Throughout primary school, I was bullied. My parents never knew all this stuff. I was beaten many times. I was bullied many times, constantly. I'm that kid that during break, I will not go out. When I go out, I'm going to get beaten. So I will stay in the class because the teachers also stay in the class with us in primary school, of course. They have a class teacher. So I'm going to get beaten. People, I've been in a class where somebody took my pencil. My dad bought me this nice HB pencil, very nice, sharp one, and the guy took it from me and stamped it, broke it something, and there was nothing I could do. That's why I don't play soccer. That's why, because nobody will put me, to play soccer when I was growing up. Because so at that time, I've told this story many times. My dad took a decision that most people of his age will not take. He relocated his family after the Civil War, and that is how he came to live in Lagos. And we are the losers. We are the Omoyibo, Nyomiri, Ayutama, Mama Mumi. And practically, I learned to speak the Yoruba language by just paying attention, listening. I just learned to speak it. Most of my friends don't know I speak. Even right now, they don't know I speak Yoruba. I just pay attention. I listen, because I have to listen to the quotes what the enemies said about me. And they were usually very, very bad, very, very, but for me to now overcome all this. Now you can imagine me now seeing people being maltreated and I'll keep quiet, or see somebody, whatever. I just can't, because it takes me back to where I was. So I hate injustice. I hate people being maltreated. I am very, very worried because of my story. So you don't throw away your story. My wife, some of you know that over a decade ago, my wife, had some medical challenge that got us to, it was really bad, that we had to start raising money home and abroad, and we had to fly out to India for medical checkup. And she didn't believe that she would survive, but she survived, and she's alive today. So because of that, she now said, because of what I've got, what I went through, and because of, she won't be here today if people didn't give. If people didn't give to that cause. On her own, she started an NGO, which she called Give to Save. All right. And that's when you see her, she's collecting items, she's selling things. All that money goes into paying people's medical bills. A lot of time, people that would even know, people that not disciples, helping them with their medical bills. So you don't waste your pain. You don't waste your journey, your story. So your wilderness, season might come, but there will be a time of refreshing. I mean, we looked at day 35 in that one. We talked about the wilderness season. It was not just for you. It was also for someone else's rescue. Okay? It's not just for your own refinement. God is not allowing you to go through it to refine you, but it's also allowed to go through it so that someone else might be rescued, by that. And I can tell you about people now, without even mentioning it, because I'm not supposed to mention it, people that my recent pains have actually helped in the past 1 year. They would rather listen to someone like me that have gone through pain, that's all have gone through that kind of pain. So in the 34, we will learn from the life of Joseph, and I love that Joseph, and that has been my mantra for the past 4 years. It was to save lives that God has sent me ahead of you. It was, I will tell people, I say, one day, man, it's going to all make sense. It's going to make sense. I'll be able to say it was free to save life that God has sent me ahead of you. So your story of overcoming addiction, it can be a lifeline for an addict somewhere. Maybe your story of surviving grief, and my actually bring comfort for someone who is mourning at this time. Your story of finding maybe purpose, it can become a roadmap for someone out there. So as we learned also in day 22, that spiritual discipline of telling, like I shared, telling turns us outward. Okay. When you are grieving, you go inward. When you are suffering, you are inward. When you are going through change, you are inward. But telling turns us outward. It stops us from being self-focused, and it now connects us to the mission that God has called us to. So you become a living proof of God's grace when you tell. This is where I begin to put everything together and say, okay, well, what will I tell myself first? Before I go and tell anybody what? Let me affirm all the things that I am learning in the stuff. And that's why I tell myself that, Emmanuel, that my story, your story, my story is a weapon. And I want you to be able to believe that your story is a weapon that defeats enemies. When you begin to tell, enemies begin to shake. Enemies that brings fear, that brings discouragement. I am not ashamed of my journey. It is the evidence of God's grace in my life. No matter how bad it is, that is God is showing Himself. That is why God allowed me to go through the things I've gone through so much, because God's grace wants to abound in my life. My testimony builds faith in others, and it strengthens the church ultimately. Whenever I share my testimony, people are strengthened. When I share my testimony, people that are not disciples, people are encouraged. So I will not hide God's goodness in my life. I will publish His praise. I will tell about His praise. I will tell about what He has done. My past pains has purpose in God's redemptive plan for me. They might be in the past, they might be painful, but that is part of the plan. And and I want you to begin to tell yourself all that I am a witness. You are a witness. You are a witness, and you have a story that has to be told. You have a story that has to be told. Our call to action this week, here we're going to share here. I know of us, we're going to share even for a minute. We're going to share here. So we're going to practice this art of telling at this time. Because you don't need a pulpit to come and preach. You don't need, you just need a story that to share. So your assignment, even from here today, is to prepare maybe a short story. You can focus on three things, and that's how to share the story. Three things you focus on. Look at before the encounter, during the encounter, and after the encounter. Just before, during, and after. Before, then the encounter, then after. So in before, think about what was your life like before. What was your struggle like before this breakthrough that you have? What's it like? Or the encounter? Look at it before. Then you now look at what did Jesus Christ do when you had that encounter, and how did Jesus intervene in your life? Then finally, you now look at how is your life different now. Okay, so we need to share those testimony with someone, and people this week. It could be a family member, it could be a co-worker, it could be a friend that needs encouragement. Do not ever underestimate the power of your voice. Don't ever estimate the power of your voice. So I'm going to be, I'm running up now. Whoa, there's so many hands up. So let me start from my sister Yetunde Buffet. They will move to Thompson. They will go to Adefolu. Go ahead and share, please.
Thank you very much. Good morning. I hope I am being heard.